Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast that every 2 weeks we watch an anime. We come together on this podcast and we discuss it in a book club style format. We go through our characters, our plot, our theories. There will be a spoiler section later that we'll warn you about. And then we turn our conversation over to you on various social medias so that you can not only join the discussion, but help lead it, help educate us, educate other listeners. That is what we're going for. It is not just the three Bakas here. You're all a bunch of idiots. Bakas. I love you, guys.
Wow.
Calling them out.
Nice way to insult your audience.
They don't like me anyway. All right. To discuss the anime that we're discussing today, I need the help of my co-host. And first off, we have the Dr. Giro to my Red Ribbon Army, Jeremy. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been up since 4 a.m. this morning, so I'm a little bit tired, but I'm here. So that's just going to have to suffice. But over the Thanksgiving weekend, I purchased a game, and I have been enjoying it immensely during that time. It's called Creeper World 4, and I bet you guys have never heard of it, have you? Nope. Yeah. Okay. So think of a game, way back in like Windows 3.1, and I think they eventually made a version for Windows 95. There was this game where you would have an island and you could put down like little mechas and you could put down little missile launchers and you'd have little bases that generate currency and stuff. And then on the other side of the map, the computer handled another island and they would be constantly shooting missiles at you. And so you'd have your missile defense system trying to shoot it down. And you would just slowly build up and eventually take that other island. And I remember absolutely loving that game. Creeper World 4 does the same thing using more modern gameplay. And one of the coolest parts about it is that your enemy is actually a fluid simulation. So what you have coming from the other side of the map is you have these emitters, is what they're called, and they emit this blue fluid called Creeper. And it's basically like, it reminds me of gray goo, like nanomachines. And so you have to constantly just whittle it down and defeat it and then send your missiles over and set up your base and just kind of work your way there, chewing through this creep until you manage to neutralize and nullify all of these emitters. And then you win that level and you get to warp out and go to the next level. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's made by like 1 or 2 people. So it's a very small indie game. But I have been immensely impressed with it. Absolutely love it. Highly recommend it. Creeper World 4. Ad.
Right. Tag ad. We wish. Also on the podcast is our other co-host, the Dr. Willie. Pause for effect. To my robot masters, Jason.
Thank you, Mega Man. Yeah, been as soon as the turkey was done being eaten, I'm pulling out Christmas decorations because the wife wants our house to throw up Christmas.
Santa Barf.
By the way, Troy, how's yours going?
My lights are up. We keep putting up the tree, though. It's literally supposed to happen today, so it's now literally supposed to happen tomorrow.
Fresh or fake?
I go fake now. Just because I found
Okay.
one that I can program with my phone and draw designs in the lights, and that's cooler to me.
Nice. Yeah, we got our fake. Actually, we have a fake tree that we've been putting up for the past couple of years. My wife got another fake tree. So now we have 2. But yeah, besides that, Path of Exile is doing an event this week called Endless Delve. So there's a subsection of the game where it's just you follow a minecart with a light and you go from node to node. If you leave behind the minecart, the darkness kills you.
I remember playing that.
Yeah, you have to be in the light. If you get out of the light, you die. But this league is hardcore. So if your character dies, it's gone. And because it's a void league, it doesn't get transferred to standard. It's just gone. And Also, it's self-found, so that means I cannot trade with other players. And it's been a weird experience because I'm always like, oh, I'm missing a piece of gear, or oh, I need to fix these resistances. I'll just go trade for it. No, so I'm using currencies that I would never use in the real game because I would just use the currency for other stuff. This, I'm actually using it to roll things, and like, it's been a really weird experience. But yeah, I've lost like 15 characters.
Oh, this is Path of Exile, the roguelite.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And because it's an endless trail of minecartness. Fighting both the darkness and the monsters has been a joy.
I can't believe I'm yearning for Christmas tree talk now.
Listen, just because you hate games doesn't mean you need to come at me like this.
We have been doing this podcast for 3 years. Not one person has ever commented, hey, how is Jason doing in Paths of Exile? What's his new thoughts on Paths of Exile? Just want to point that out. It has accumulated 0 interest. There is no following that is keeping up with your updates. And you refuse to stop.
It's what I like to do. You asked me how I was doing. That's what I've been doing.
Right. My name is Troy, and I'm unironically wearing a Taco Bell shirt. That's a true story.
Side job?
No, I just like Taco Bell a lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, unironically, I was just like,
What I've been doing, I've watched the first 2 parts of the Get Back Beatles documentary on Disney Plus. And I love it. It is definitely not for everyone. It's directed by Peter Jackson, guy who did Lord of the Rings, which should tell you that it's way too long. But I'm okay with that. Like, there's probably a 2-hour documentary for people who are generally interested, but it's very much like 7 hours of fly on the wall of the last time the Beatles recorded an album right before they break up, and their first time recording in Apple Studios, the studio they made together. So like, there's all this tension and drama, obviously, but yet you're also watching them create some of their biggest masterpieces. The one scene that everyone talks about is the one, Paul McCartney shows up early. He's stressed that you don't have John isn't writing as many songs as he's supposed to because he's on heroin now. And Paul McCartney sits there and he just starts strumming the bass, and he's creating Get Back from the ether, just like pulling it out of the air, while Ringo and George are sitting there bored and like yawning, and then they start clapping along and start playing along, and then John walks in late and he picks up a guitar and just joins in, and they just start making the song Get Back. And it was literally just Paul going from nothing, and it was, you get to watch a song be born. It's also really cool to see the creative process as someone who, being a podcast isn't the most creative thing ever, but we do collaborate, the 3 of us, and getting to watch them do back and forth, to watch them butt heads, but also share ideas. It is cool, and also, it's a historical moment in time, but it's also really sad to see them like recognize that they're not as close of friends as they used to be, and realize that's a problem, but there's not anything really to do about it.
I mean, you could stop drugs. That would be a step in the right
Yeah.
Some things are non-negotiable, I guess.
What are you gonna do?
But also, it kind of dispels the Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles. She's there, and it's weird that she sits next to John Lennon in everything they do, but she never like interferes or says, "Hey, we should." That's not how you should do it. Or she's very she's like doing knitting and crossword puzzles in the back. She's not in any way the problem. The problem is they didn't have a leadership, and then Paul wanted to be the leader, and then he got bossy. All right. Let's talk about this anime. We watched the Idaten Deities Only Know Peace. And before we even go into reviews, we're giving a mature content warning. I believe we said it was rated R, or whatever the anime equivalent is, when we picked this. But it was even more so than we anticipated. I think it's fair to say that all of us Bakas at one moment or another were offended by the content in there. We will address that when we get to it. It's fine if it's not something that did offend you or did offend you, but just know that that's what we're going into. But also want to give you warning if you are deciding to watch this. There is some very... Help me out, guys.
It's vulgar,
Thank
obscene.
you. Vulgar. And
Let's put it this way.
Content.
If you've watched a couple of our podcasts or listened to it, you know the kind of stuff that we've enjoyed and seen. This goes a step beyond just gory or just sexualization. This is basically just not okay content in our moral view. So take that into consideration. Maybe do a little bit more research before actually watching it. Because it's content that I think most people in this kind of culture would disagree with.
Yeah, if I could actually name a couple of anime, just to give you an idea of our scale, just in case you aren't a long-time listener. Goblin Slayer, Gantz, right? Inuyashiki. Yeah. There's a lot of anime that we've watched where we've been like, okay, the violence, the gore, the rape, things that have happened in it are really bad, but at the same time it may not completely ruin the anime. Inuyashiki was one of those that it was so bad we didn't actually even want to keep watching, but we finished it. I would say this is worse than all of them by far. So yeah, take that for what you will.
And we'll explain where we're coming from too. And I also do want to know that a lot of people weren't bothered by it. We've seen plenty of reviews that this actually has a really high review in a lot of places you find. You look it up on Reddit, no one's seems to be that much bothered by it. And that's fine as well. But, everybody has to decide for themselves what's okay. And we just don't want anyone walking in who would share our sensibilities walking into it blind. Especially since we said, hey, this is what we're watching and everyone watch it. This is about as early as a warning as we can really give. So just trying to take responsibility of that. Again, you got to decide for yourself what is appropriate. We'll explain our own opinions and our viewpoints of where it comes from. But if you want to tell us back why it works for you or doesn't, that's also how Baka works. No one opinion is the right opinion. It's just we're all coming from different views.
Unless it's Trey's opinion that is wrong.
Right. Always. Except for this Taco Bell shirt, which is dope. All right.
Bring it back around.
Yeah. Let's go into our non-spoiler reviews. And we're not going to say who picked it, but Jeremy, you go first.
Come
for
on,
no reason whatsoever.
I always pick these horrible ones.
Rolling the dice.
Yeah. So I like picking edgy anime, right? I see a really interesting art style or I see some kind of interesting idea and I'm like, oh, okay, I want to see where this goes. So I'll just do this really cursory glance at reviews because I don't want to spoil myself or anything. If I was able to subtract a handful of scenes from this anime, I think I would actually enjoy it. The tone, it's weird. It's like you're mixing Dragon Ball Z with like Gantz or something, right? So you have this lightness of a power battler combined with the heaviness of like a really gory, filled with drama events, or with Goblin Slayer, because there's a rape scene in this.
I think
right?
Claymore is a good one to throw.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Claymore's a great example. And yet, when you do mix this, you don't get a nice fusion that feels right and makes sense. It's clumsily mixed together, where instead of having these really heavy topics dealt with some level of responsibility, I want to say, or with some level of taking it seriously, giving them the weight that they deserve, right? Because oftentimes when you're presented with really serious events like rape or really bad violence or kiddie stuff, right, this is going to be presented as a serious injustice. And if something is a serious injustice, you don't make light of it. And yet, in this anime, that's what I kept finding, is like whenever these serious injustices would happen, whenever these really dark things would happen, the anime would be using its pretty colors, and it would be like almost glorifying it or glamorizing it. And it was just really uncomfortable. It made it way worse. So if I could take those scenes out and just have like the interesting power battler with a little bit of like maybe a little bit of gore or something, if they'd left that in, I think I would have liked it. But as it stands, the combination that they went with and the things they chose to include, I actually have to recommend that you avoid it. If you decide not to, cool, that's totally up to you. But my recommendation would be to avoid it.
All right, Jason, what'd you think?
This is like the third anime in a row that we've watched that has a tone issue. And it goes back to what Jeremy was saying, is that you've got this anime that wants to be slapstick funny, right? Because most of the battle scenes are great, really. And then you've got these training montage, or not even montage, but just training sessions where, you know, you get the person that hits the other person, and then you have the small person in the background flying, and they hit a rock face, and they're in it, right? That kind of slapstick humor works for anime, right? But then you have these really horrific situations where you just don't. You're either confused or just kind of disgusted that it would be taken so lightheartedly. This anime upset me because it had some really cool ideas going for it. I loved the play between the good guys and the bad guys. I liked that there was this grayness about what was good, what was bad, who was the good guy, who was the bad guy, what does human intelligence bring into a morality situation. Because I've always liked stories that go, you know, you've got the good guy and he's slayed 500 bad guys. Well, who's the real monster? I like those quandaries. This anime does a decent job bringing those issues up and then just falls on its face. So yeah, I did not have a good time with it.
After watching this anime, I felt like I nailed a description for it. It is a Studio Trigger anime written by a sociopath.
Yes.
And to be fair, the manga artist is getting a little bit famous right now. He had another anime that got pulled from Funimation for being too adult after like 2 episodes. He clearly likes to straddle that line, and like Jeremy and Jason said, there's story stuff that's in here. The story beats are good. The action is great. The character designs, and there's that over the topness of Studio Trigger. That's where I really got, like, you know, I swing my arm and a mountain crumbles, but in an almost cartoonish way, not just crumbles, like it boo pops off. There's that kind of stuff in there. Very Studio Trigger, very over the top. But Studio Trigger does everything with heart, and like you connect to your characters. So even when the story doesn't make sense, you're like, go, 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 because you care, and it captures that heart. That's how it gets away with its over the topness. There's no heart here. There's some cool moral quandaries, but everybody's horrible. Every character's the worst in their own way, and so you're not rooting for anyone. And then there are the difficult to get through scenes, which are presented not only lightly, and I wouldn't say comedically, but in a comedic episode, like jokes were told less than 5 minutes ago, but also with that's kind of hot, right? Wink, wink. And that's what really gets me that bothers, is that it does it with almost I'm doing this for the fans of this, the people who like this kind of thing. And it's like, we probably shouldn't be encouraging the fans of these kinds of things. That's, that's not for me. And so that's where I got bothered. And it actually, because I liked the anime, it made me angry when I had those. So yeah, there's a good anime in here, I think, that I enjoy. Take out 3-4 scenes and I'm happy as a clam. As it is, I'm not recommending it as well. And in fact, you know, my kids always ask me what I'm watching, even my adult daughters, and I'm like, I'm watching this, don't watch it. I do want to share a review that we have online, though. This is actually from one of our longtime listeners and good friend of the show, Gamer Dad and Geek. He said, you know, this was such a weird series. Let's take a look. Let's take what looks like a kid show and see how effed up we can make it. Love the opening, though. Gave me mob vibes. That's very true. the last episode falls on a cliffhanger, which was weird. Apparently, this was all the source material they had, which is also true. The manga part apparently stuck. All right. So, now with those out of the way, let's talk about that OP and that ED. What did you guys think?
Fantastic. The ED was okay. Not something I'm going to put on a music list, but it was mainly credits, I believe.
Girls
And
skateboarding.
then but the OP was fantastic. Didn't really give away much about the anime, just kind of showcased the characters. The music was great. I rarely skipped it, mainly just to listen to the song. But the visuals were cool. I thought they did a great job with it.
Yeah, I really love how the visuals kind of tie into what these entities are, these Idaten, because it shows imagery of like their faces being taken off, and like the inside of them is just filled with different geometric, concentric circles or objects or ribbons or cubes or different things coming out of them, and it's really cool. And like you have the skin being unzipped down the back of one of the girls, and like she shrugs the skin off, and you can see like glowing bluish white skeleton. Very, very interesting, and I think it ties in really well when we start to find out what the Idaten actually are, at least what they think they are. So that was really cool. Also, I totally agree. The music of the OP was really nice. ED, I don't know. I felt like it was on fast forward. So maybe that was just a.
It's just anime does sometimes.
Yeah. So I don't know, but nothing super special for me with the ED. But yeah, opening was really good.
I love the OP. Definitely didn't skip it, and I'm actually deciding right now if I'm going to put it into my songs. I don't want to think about this anime too often, but that song is really good, and the part where the main character like bursts through a screen and it just nails it. I also think Gamer Dad really nailed it with the mob feeling. It definitely had that OP style. The ED was all right. I kept watching it and wondering like, how does this tie into the story? Am I learning anything about these characters? Especially since the last shot is two characters with wedding clothing in between them in a store display. And it tries to pretend like one of them is not one of the main characters, but it's like, no, that's totally the guy. So what does this mean for the future, especially after the cliffhanger? So, it was interesting at least, but not my favorite. And with that, we go to our spoiler warning. Again, even more mature things that we need to talk about that are ahead as well, but also we'll be revealing what happens to characters and plots and all that will be uncovered going forward. And spoiler warning dropped. You got to decide if you're sticking around. Anytime. Pick. All right. I figure you decided. All right. So the setting of this anime is a world where demonic monsters and like straight up just crazy monster beasts that are attacking humans and eating them. In fact, getting pretty close to wiping out the human population. It is having a major effect. And these Idaten? Idaten have started to appear on the planet, and they are a result of human beings praying for salvation, thinking about them, and then time is apparently
there's three criteria that have to be met.
Yes.
Jeremy, what are they?
I think it was those.
Oh, in time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, praying for salvation, the conscious thought of the people who are praying, and then the time to show up.
But it was like intense emotional anguish with that craving of salvation.
Yeah,
it couldn't just be like, "Oh, I wish someone would find my car keys." Like it was,
exactly. Had to be true suffering.
Yeah, and these are gods, is what they're called, and seem to act like gods. And they came and they wiped out the demons. We see that a bunch of them just slaying them, and they ended up sacrificing themselves to seal the demons away, and they left behind one who the old one called his granddaughter. I'm not quite sure how that works because they don't seem to breed. But And
this
this
is like that version of Chan, westernizing it.
And this character is Rin, and the story starts, 800, 900 years later. 800 years later, and Rin has been keeping watch over this seal on the top of this cliff that holds the demons inside. And she's our first character to meet. She's probably not our main character, but she's our trainer character, our Master Roshi, if you will. So what do you guys think of Rin?
I actually really liked this character. She's basically a Goku if Goku got senile and old. Because she's, nobody can stand up to her, even when she's sliced in half. And she cares nothing for complicated issues. AKA, she's kind of dumb, but she's very focused. I protect the seal. I kill demons, and I train other Idaten. That's it. That is her life. I really actually liked her backstory a little better. But in the current day, yeah, she's a great character to watch and be a part of the story.
Yeah, you're 100% correct about her being dumb. One of the things that absolutely cracked me up was when the demons were talking and they were evaluating the Idaten, and they were like, yeah, only this one is intelligent. We have to worry about him. All the others are below average intelligence of a human. So even though she's 800 years old, she is still below average human intelligence.
Just a box of rocks.
Yeah, she is. But she is 100% like earnest about doing her job and being the best Idaten she can be. And her solution to every problem is brute force, and I absolutely love the way they portray that. I love their training sessions. The way she trains them is she literally just beats the snot out of them, which may not be the optimal training method, but it's her training method because it's how she trained herself.
Right.
And it's just adorable. So yeah, she's a great character. Yeah, I loved every moment she was on screen.
It reminds me of a quote from a card game I played a long time ago. Brute force doesn't solve your problem. You're probably not using enough.
That's right.
There's scenes where she literally just breaks the dude's neck. He collapses, and she's like, sleep, you're not done regenerating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's injure him more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly think this is my favorite character of the entire anime. And just for all the reasons you guys have said, my favorite description of her, they asked probably their main character, why would you talk to her like that way? He's like, I talk to her nice, I talk to her mean, doesn't matter, she's gonna kick the crap out of me, so what's the difference?
So I call her old hag.
Yeah. And that's her. She's literally just gonna pen you. And because she started as a character who, when she was a little girl at the very, very beginning of the prologue, she's terrified of everything. And so she went through a lifetime of just getting herself killed and beat up. And because when these creatures regenerate, they come back stronger. And so that's how she got so strong.
Yeah,
literally a Saiyan.
Yeah, we're talking like 550 years she spent tempering her body in volcanoes and stuff.
Yeah, walking through lava. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We see her training, like I said, what's probably the main character, but it's really an ensemble cast. Hayato. What do you guys think of him? A very determined young man to fight stuff.
I liked Hayato as well, because he was not all that intelligent either. Because he's been training with her for the past 8 years. And, she literally nearly kills him every time they train, and that's his training or regiment. But I do like that his problem solving is, I don't necessarily want to kill you, I just want to win. Right? So very brute force, but is more willing to like listen and go through the motions of something to get at his next fight if it means something. It seems like he wants to get into fights that mean things. So whether it's training, whether it's going after a particular demon, it has to mean something to him.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to him is whether it's a challenge, whether he can actually benefit from it and get stronger. One of the things that crap, I was going to say. So what happens when you get up that early? But he's very pragmatic, and I do really like that about him. He's very entertaining. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back later. But anyways, he's a great character.
If Goku and Naruto had a baby, it would be this character. As brash as Naruto and as eager to just fight and be dumb as Goku, and that works for me. He's instantly likable. He's probably one of the few characters I ended up rooting for. Him and Rin, I wanted them to win their fights, even though their fights weren't for morally justifiable reasons or for the good of anything. They just wanted to fight. But hey, if you can root for Goku, you can root for these two. So,
well, I think they're very similar in their attitudes, but there's one scene where that like really distinguishes the two. Old Granny's just wanton destruction, looking for demons, and he's like, "Whoa, hold back a little bit! You're gonna kill a bunch of people."
There are people there,
yeah. Oh, I remember what it was. I love the explanation they have for why he suddenly gets a power spike. They always have to do this when you're going to have a power scaler, a power battler. How do you explain why this character is faced with an enemy that he can't even touch, and then all of a sudden he needs to gain a big power level boost so that we can root for him and actually see that improvement? And their explanation for it was that because these Idaten can control their weight, their body mass, he had just been keeping himself at like 2 kilograms of weight so that he could be super fast, faster than everybody else. So his punches didn't hurt anybody. So when he finally figured that out, he became a better fighter because he kicked himself up to his normal weight. And I loved that reasoning. Like the way they played with that logic was really cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. After training, he goes off to meet with Easley, who is another Idaten who does not like to train, does not like to fight. He has spent his lifetime, which is long time, just reading and studying and gaining knowledge. What do you guys think of this character?
I really like this character, but man, he is the worst. He's not only really strong, he's not as strong as our first two characters, but he's he's a god, so he's pretty strong, and he's used his long lifetime and love of research to monetize. But then also, like, he's got research facilities where he's done terrible things to humans. But I do love the way the story presents his reasoning and logic. It makes sense from a storytelling perspective, and it doesn't feel ham-fisted when he has his either revelations or he's talking about his doublespeak when he's talking to one character versus another. He was portrayed very well. And yeah, his moral grayness, if you will, was interesting to see.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool how he would theorize and hypothesize about what kind of additional powers they might have as gods, which it appears that none of the other ones, at least even that Rin knew about before they bound themselves up in the seals, even had any inkling that they would be able to do. And so he's gathered enough information that he's covering new ground, and that leaves a lot of really interesting directions that they could go. But I do think like his ability to lobotomize people is so ridiculously efficient. Like, it's really hard for me to. It's just a godly power, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they regenerate so well because they're demons, so they can survive his chopping. But man, that's just crazy.
One thing I really liked about this character is he is kind of the best subject to watch as far as what is good and what is evil. He's on the good guy's side, but he's also been dissecting humans, so he knows how their brains work. And he also is taking the enemy and brainwashing them and forcing them to work for him. And yeah, they seem happy, but wait, are they really happy? And then you find out later, yeah, no, maybe not. Maybe they didn't switch characters like I thought they had. And also, he goes up to a country and is like, oh yeah, you guys have been horribly evil, but as long as you don't start war, that's fine. I don't care. And this anime does do a good job of taking what a higher being would think of the human race. Better than I've seen in a long time, because it's very much like an ant colony. I'm not stopping the slavery of the queen monarch from the worker ant, not saving this ant from the life of slavery that he's in. But also, if this ant was endangered, then I might help the colony to grow or something like that. And he pointed out, like, a human doesn't care if something happens to a tree in a forest, whatever. But if the forest is on fire, the humans will try to put it out and save that forest. And that's how they see us humans. Yeah, the humans are terrible to each other. They do horrible things. What does that have to do with us? As long as the race is surviving, that's all we're here for. And they don't care about us, even though they are technically on our side.
Yep.
Which is really interesting, and they almost have no empathy for us or anyone. And yet then we see the villains later do, even though they're also even more horrible to us, but then they have empathy for each other and for humans sometimes. It really puts that into good focus.
I would
there's
say
actually a great scene that kind of showcases that, where Hayato comes in, he sees a bunch of girls in a jail cell, and he's like, "Oh, this is how they keep you humans in one spot." Like,
yeah.
this idea is just never comprehended. He's like, "Yeah, let me move that bars for you." Like, and not as if like, "Oh, I'm gonna save you, get out of here." He's like, "Oh, here, let me just move that."
Yeah. He's just spent his entire life on the island, so he's never had to worry about anything except fighting.
Jeremy, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just gonna say that it is really cool how they show that empathy and everything. And there's a couple of scenes. The vast majority of the guys on the other side are absolutely horrible, 100% brutal. But there's some that, make it seem like there's some redeeming qualities in them, which, that's very interesting.
All right. And then after these characters meet up, they go and meet up with Paula because she can talk to birds. And this is a kind of an airhead Idaten who is really fast and is really good at changing her weight so she can float and fly better than the others. Your guys' thoughts on Paula?
I'm not sure what she adds to the anime. She's kind of dopey. She's drawn voluptuously, and she, in the first couple of episodes, she was really good at kind of being the spy because she could move between people without being seen or heard. But she seems to be more of a comedic effect than anything, and I didn't find much value in having her in it besides the laughs. So,
yeah, the little training session that we get at the beginning where Rin just basically breaks her back and leaves her on the ground. Does the same thing to Yisli and does the same thing to Hayate or whatever his name is. That just the way that they drew her and knowing that these are not humans, so having her back broken is not as serious as it would be for a human. So this is meant to be something that is part of their normal training, and yet seeing it come across as such a shock. Excellent slapstick comedy, very well done. So I thought that she was, great for those kinds of moments. But yeah, I completely agree with you. She was sort of an empty shell for anything else. At best, maybe they're just to give somebody else something to do. They got to move her around or something or go get her.
I think she might be the one Idaten who has some empathy. Especially when she takes that blow for Corey later to save his life. She's kind of the only one we ever see make a sacrifice for anyone. Not that they've had much need for it. But she does, and I think that later that'll matter if I'm reading the points of where they want the story to go, especially with the nun character and what she's talking about later on about, how can these three races come to peace. That someone like Paula might be influential or key in that, but not planning on coming back to find out. So that's just my guess.
And I did like how naive-ish, but also kind of dopey. There's a scene where she comes down she's grown wings out of her back to trick these people, and they're like, "Don't believe her, their costume." She's like, "Well, kind of." You're tricking them. Why'd you say that?
Yeah.
So once they've all met up, they learn from birds that humans have been gathering up north. They go to investigate and find the Zobel army there, being led by an evil scientist who we'll talk about in a second. And they found one of the monstrous demons who did not get sealed, frozen in the ice, even though it's supposed to be like a really dumb low-level demon. When they wake it up, it senses Paula nearby, who is planting a bug so they could listen in, and starts attacking crazily. And they end up fighting it. And this is where we see Yisley get pierced all the way through his torso. Like, oh, he's dead. But then he saves Paula 5 seconds later. And he's like, yeah, you didn't know we could get our heart punched out of our chest? Yeah, that happens. It's not my first time. And so Hayato ends up fighting it, punches a hole in its heart, and then is surprised that it is dead. And it's like, oh, I guess this thing is much weaker than we thought. And then
the only Idaten that's seen a demon at this point is Rin. So this is all new to them.
Right. I really like the point that they make that this means that the demons are closer to humans in biology than the Idaten are.
Right. They are creatures.
Which is very, very important later.
First, there's two things that happen here that's important. First is Yisley hides the demon body away and then makes a mysterious phone call for someone to come get it, which I'll be honest I thought was a really cool plot twist thing to do. Like, did not see this coming. Was wondering, is he a villain? That would be interesting.
That was my first thought. I
kind of wish they had taken it a little farther than they did. I understand why they went where they went, but it would be cool if he was like just an evil mastermind, which he kind of is, but just not evil. The other thing is the scientist, Dr. Obami, tries to run away, and Hayato jumps on his jet and makes it crash, and we find out his body is an android, which self-destructs.
I like how he's walking up to the plane. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Humans are frail, aren't they?
Yeah.
Dang it.
Oh, crashes. That kills them, doesn't it? Oh.
I better check on him.
But this is not the end of Dr. Obami. He is our main villain. He's also the demon lord of the bad guy. So what did you guys think of our main antagonist here?
I won't get into it here. Because it's kind of a integral plot point, but I love the ideas that they were going with him. I thought he was just a really dumb G.I. Joe bad guy character. He mastermind. I don't know. He didn't seem particularly smart in his decision making, and his inferences were all flawed. And even when we come to find out later his relationship with Rin, I don't know. I just didn't care about this bad guy. I didn't think he was all that threatening.
Mm-hmm. So often in anime we get characters who have amnesia, and they're usually the protagonist, right? And it gets old. It happens a lot in games too, or maybe it usually only happens in games, and I'm just mixing that up. But this was a situation where we kind of got the same thing, but for the villain, the mastermind villain has amnesia. And I don't know, that kind of is an interesting idea to explore, because it impairs him. He's going to have really flawed decisions that he comes to. He's going to interpret things wrong because he only has partial memories. And I kind of liked that about him. But I did find that they were deliberately, it seemed like, using him for the comedic tones more than anything else.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think it kind of detracted from him actually being a true threat or being a true mastermind, at least from my perception. Because whenever he was on the screen, I thought, oh, he's not really that much of a threat. He's just a joke. and that maybe was a hindrance to his character. So I'm not really sure what to think about him.
I actually found it interesting. I guess I'm on the upside of this character, because I found it interesting that not only him but all the villains are really the underdogs in the story, which is odd. Other than One Punch Man, I can't remember a time where the villains were just so outclassed that you kind of just like, you're screwed. You can't win. And they even kind of become aware of that as well. He does. He is a bit of a silly villain, but I like that behind him there's something more sinister and threatening because of his existence, but that we also get to just deal with the silly side of it for now. I found it interesting. I liked what they're set up with this character.
You made a great point that I didn't even realize this moment. This anime seems like it wants to be One Punch Man with the slapstick, with a bit of gore. But the problem is that they just went about it the wrong way. I don't mean to harp on this more, but like I just remember enjoying One Punch Man so much, and that slapstick humor of the bad guys being outclassed can be done well. We've seen it,
even with gore, because there's gore in One Punch Man.
Well, I mean, when he hits the Tiger King, I mean, his eyeballs, everything.
Yep.
I thought you were gonna say my great point was that I have a cool Taco Bell shirt, but all right.
Let it go.
That's me trying to lighten the mood as we go into the final scene of this first episode, which features a nun in a town being attacked by the Zobel army, and some soldiers come in and they attack her, and it is very. I mean, it's shown but not directly shown, and I actually think it's shown better than like Ogre. Goblin Slayer. Yep, that's the monster I was looking for. I think Goblin Slayer showed it. It wasn't provocative during the scene. Well, in Goblin Slayer, like you actually see the female at the time, and she's put in poses that are usually reserved for fan servicey poses. There is a fan servicey moment going into this where her clothes are ripped off, and that's what I was talking about in the earlier part about the wink, wink. Hey, she's hot. Don't do that in a rape scene, but then it goes in kind of an artistic, subtle way where you see like top of heads and her moving. Still not a fan of it, but if you disagree, go ahead.
No, so what I disagree, I don't like the fan serviciness of both. I get that. When I watched it in Goblin Slayer, I didn't just feel disgust, but I felt a sense of dread and a sense of terror, which is exactly the message the anime was trying to send, that this was an awful thing that these creatures do, and they're deserving of extermination by our main character. And this also explains how they procreate. When this scene started, when the soldiers first enter the church, the way it was set up in anime, in American animation, in other forms of animation, anytime you see this kind of like jokiness about it and them, rousing each other, this felt like a superhero at any moment was going to come in and stop the situation. That was the way this was portrayed. And then once the act started happening, then they started to like do the whole happiness and like almost trying to make light of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel terror or anguish for this character. I just felt disgusted and dirty for watching it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me it was the way that it used the silhouettes and the colors. Actually, during the rape sequence was very unsettling because it said something completely different from what was actually taking place. Like the colors used and the music and everything just tried to make it seem light and non-consequential almost. So yeah.
So that's why I disagree a little bit, is I think Goblin Slayer used it in a way to be terrorizing, to make this is a bad thing that happened. In this one, I did not feel that was the message they were trying to come across. In fact, we end up with like Munchausen syndrome.
Stockholm?
Stockholm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Munchausen is something else. All right.
Okay.
I do agree with you that in Goblin Slayer, that scene serves a better purpose to the story. I guess what I was saying is how it's portrayed. For Goblin Slayer is worse for me than specifically this, but what I have problems with both of them are actually very, very similar. Just again, that wink, wink. Yeah, I just don't like that.
I totally agree with you there.
What really frustrates me is in this next episode we're going into, they set up a character that we're about to talk about, and she's prepping the Zobel army, and they're like, we're gonna go attack. All the money and the weapons are for Zobel, but everything else is for you. And they're talking, they're jesting with each other about what they're about to do, and it's very clear that this is what this army does. And hey, in history, that is a thing that armies have been marching for. That's a real thing, and it heavily implies, it totally tells me what this army is about. And then when we find out how it factors into the demon's plan, that all made sense, and it made this end of this scene in the end of the first episode completely unneeded, because I got all that information anyway, and now I just kind of feel sick to my stomach because of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think what really upset me about this scene is not only on the coattails of the last one, but that it was just animated in that Studio Trigger-esque goofy, ooh, this is a fun time, guys.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It felt gross. It really did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very mixed message.
I think if we didn't have the previous scene and they wanted to do that scene before and made it all goofy, I might have bought it a little bit and be like, oh, okay, these are the bad guys of this goofy universe. But that was, anyways, not to harp on it too much.
All right, in the next episode, Easley goes to Paula and is like, with what we now know, we should start training. And you have to know, Easley used to train with Rin, and it was so horrifying that he's run away for a long time. Hundreds of years have passed, and he is not cool with training anymore. But he realizes they need to train, so he suggests to Paula, and they go and they spy on Rin, training with Hayato, and she catches them, and he begs to be trained, and she's just like, yes, you're the wayward child who didn't realize how important training was. You've come back. So she welcomes him and then just beats the crap out of him.
Yep.
We also get a scene explaining about the drawing of the Idaten, how that works. Again, we talked about the 3 criteria for them to be summoned, but an Idaten can find one being. It looks like a portal, but it's basically like an egg that they're in. To think of it that way. And they have to be in there for a long time, but if another Idaten finds them, they can pull them out immediately, although a little bit of their personality copies over to this new being. And Rin and Hayato spend a lot of time traveling the world. What do they say? It takes them 7 minutes to go around the world?
9, I believe. 9
minutes.
But that was slow.
Yeah, they were slow.
Yeah.
But yeah, they search the world every once in a while to see if there's any new ones coming so that they can pull them out. And we get that explanation. Then we get the scene where I was talking about, where the Zobel army is getting ready for their invasion. They talk about the people they're looking for their fun times. And they're led by General Piscalat, who ends up becoming a very important character. So we do need to talk. What do you guys think of General Piscalat?
I actually kind of like this character pre and post operation. She had a very, what was that anime? God, I can't remember. It was so long ago. But anyways, she has that almost like, general, very stereotypical general bad guy girl, persona about her. But she's also very calculating and, extremely loyal, and willing to kind of go to the brink of, her own destruction in order to get what she wants or to get the job done. But she also, like, her quiet moments are great too. I actually really enjoyed this character.
Yeah. All the same.
Yeah.
Is it weird to you that all the girl demons had hair powers?
Yes, I did think that was really weird.
No, because they all have tentacle powers.
But almost all the girl tentacle powers came from hair, which It's just kind of weird because, like, with the guys, it's like his whole head transforms into something, you know. Although
And
there was
her
one where, like,
arms.
her arms did.
Yeah, Nichols
too.
wasn't here.
Nichols wasn't here. I guess just Brandy and Pascalat, and I think there were
The
Brandy's
nurse.
daughter.
Brandy's
which would make
daughter.
sense. The nurse.
Oh, yeah, the nurse. Okay. Piscala, she's the one in the ED, the one that there might be a romance there. I guess I liked her more post surgery, but then that actually made me feel a little weird about that because, you know,
Being controlled.
that's not a good. I want to say morally great, but it's not even morally great. That's bad, you know.
Well, the alternative is to just kill her.
Right. Which is what this anime is about, right? That, hey, we could have peace with the demons. You want them to keep using human babies to extend their species? Well, no. Okay, so then you're forcing them to go extinct. Is that the peace you're talking about? No. Oh, yeah. Well, then there's no options, is there?
Exactly.
I get a little ahead of ourselves, but I did like that Yeasley came to the decision, like, they're smart. So if they're smart, maybe they have human brains. And if they have human brains, I might be able to affect them with this. I did like that. That was intelligent.
Yep.
So she's called back to base at the Zobel Nation and meets up with not only the Emperor, the Empress, but a bunch of people in the army. You know, they all meet in a room with Dr. Obami, who reveals that they had found a demon and that the Idaten have reappeared. And we learn that all of these people are actually demons who Dr. Obami has found a way to give human appearance and human intelligence. So, now, again, the original demons were just mindless animal monsters. Now they can think
And huge.
And huge, yeah.
And now they have human form.
This was a weird scene when they're all sitting in there at the table because there's this guy that's climbed onto the side of the building and he's listening. And I kind of got the impression that he was going to be important because his character design actually was interesting.
And he gets a name.
And everything. And so I'm like, okay, this guy's going to be important. And then they just eviscerate him. And the gore is like taken to level 11 where like his intestine, his small or large intestine is like laying on someone's head and just slides off. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I feel weird right now. Like this, the pacing and tone of this moment just doesn't feel right.
But it also showed
Something
that
weird.
the humans didn't trust this group.
That's true. Yeah.
This group decides they need to attack the Idaten, and so they send their strongest fighter, Nickel, to go where they have a tracker. And the tracker it was on Hayato, now it's on Rin, but that was due to Yeasley having seen it, and he realizes, okay, I'm going to get them to send an enemy. They'll send their strongest. That's the play you would make. And then I'll have our strongest beat them. And then as long as that can happen, we know we're good. If it doesn't happen, well, we're screwed anyway because there's nothing else we were going to be able to do. So he's basically forcing a confrontation, but they don't know this. They think they're coming in with a sneak attack.
Right, because he turned off the audio and then replaced it.
Yep.
See, he's morally gray.
Yeah.
More on the darker gray.
Well, yeah, he definitely has no problem using his own friends as chess pieces, even sacrificial ones. Was it Prontea says in the final episode, like, he's not here with her. He might have abandoned her. I could see him doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Anyway, so Nickel comes to the island and she fights Hayato at first, puts a hole in him, and so Rin takes over the fight. But Rin who's winning, and Nickel creates tentacles out of her arms and can do like a bunch of shapes and stuff with her tentacles. But Rin is like, why is this human attacking us?
And so dumb. She's absorbing it so slowly.
And she's like, I'm a demon. She's like, I don't think you're human.
Actually, I did find it funny, though, because as soon as the realization, oh, you're a demon, she's like, okay, gloves off.
Yeah, exactly.
Her realization is, you're not human. She doesn't even say she's a demon. She's like, you're not human, so this should be fine to end it. They have a really cool fight. We see Rin get her fingers chopped off, but she grows them right back. And then she eventually pulls out a sword. So all of the Idaten's clothes and everything is actually part of them. They just manifest it. So she's able to manifest the sword. And as upset as this anime got me, this will go down, I think, as one of the coolest anime moments I've ever seen. It blew my mind. The Nickel attacks with all these tentacles, and she's going to do a sneak attack under the ground with her tail one. And right before she hits Rin, she just freezes. You know, classic, like,
And
your
there's
ki is too high, and I can't move anymore.
But there's also like a demon sniper up on the ridge, and he's confused as well. Like, why'd Nickel stop?
And Rin calls the other Idaten down. They're like, "Whoa, do you know like a paralysis spell or something?" She's like, "Oh yeah, but grandfather had one of those." No, I don't know how to do that. I just won the fight. And Nickel's like, "No, what is going on? Why can't I move my body?" And Rin turns to her and goes, "Oh, that your head's not attached." And then you see the slice appear on the neck and the head fall off. And I was like, "Oh, dang, that is very cool."
Yep.
And then Rin appears behind the sniper.
Yep, Rin kills the sniper as well. Yep. Also, Yisley, eavesdropping on this fight, realizes that the Demon Lord, Rin's never heard of him, which means he's not the Demon Lord, because she would know about the Demon Lord from 800 years ago if there was one. And since she has no idea, he's like, "Ooh, that's a fake. That's something else." Also, then afterwards, he calls a friend of his, another Idaten that we'll get to meet soon, named Prontea. And we should talk about Prontea, who is the master of skills, because he's the second oldest one around. He's kind of done everything, and he's good at everything now. What do you guys think of him?
Still afraid of Rin.
Terrified.
I liked him because, like, we first see him doing, like, an RC race. He wins the RC race, and he's like, "Yep, I did what I wanted to do," and then he just takes off. He's really interesting. I like his power set. I like that he's in touch with, I can create things for my body and I can control certain things. What if it wasn't just physical? And so, like, he can read data remotely. He can even print some of it out on a printer because he can connect to it. He's basically doing what he's like, I don't think you can call this magic, but it kind of looks like magic, so it's kind of cool. And yeah, he's still terrified of Rin, which is hilarious, but he's also like almost as powerful as she is. But he doesn't seem to be the smartest tool in the shed either. So I do find that funny about the Idaten, is that they're just not smart.
Yeah. I get really strong Ronald McDonald vibes from him. I kind of wish he had red curly hair instead of the long white hair, just because of the like tracksuit and the big shoes.
Okay.
It just he very much comes across as a clown. But I also loved when Hayato shows up and he's like, "What are you, a wizard?" And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, okay, so they've got their tough guy Hayato, they've got their smart guy, but he doesn't have any magical abilities. I wonder what they're going to do with this guy. And then when I started seeing the magical abilities, quote unquote magical, I was like, okay, so there's their wizard. So it was kind of cool to see that get called out, but then have him constantly evaluating his new power set during combat and being like, okay, so this really isn't doing anything. Like, this is completely ineffective. It looks like just punching somebody is more effective in the end. And I was like, and you're back to Dragon Ball Z.
I like that because he's so good at basically everything he does. He's just the skilled member of the group that Yisley uses him for. Yisley's the one who's like, "Hey, I think you could connect to the internet. Try it." And then he can, but Yisley's like, "I'm not going to learn how to do that. I just wanted to see if it was possible." I love that relationship that those two have. Otherwise, he wasn't much of a character to me. He was just kind of we need someone who's proficient to help the others learn. But also he's not as fun as Rin. His fear of Rin is fun. Also his history of like just going around, and Rin made this sanctuary for humans and it sucks. So I fixed it. That's fun. But honestly, I could take him or leave him at this point.
Of interesting note is that Prontia is the one that pulled Paula into existence. And that's so right. That kind of explains there is a bit of similarity in personality between the two of them, too.
So Yisley actually suggests that they bring Frontier in and go to see him, and the Zobel Navy surrounds their island. So the three young Idaten go underwater to get there, while Rin stands guard on the island. Meanwhile, Piscalat, Corey, and I forget the other guy's name. Three demons though basically go to the city the nation that they're going to, knowing that that's the most likely place they will travel. And Corey was one of your favorites, Jeremy, and I don't have him in the show notes. Did you want to say anything about him?
I thought Corey turned out to be a really interesting character. You know, when he's first introduced, he's like this little kid demon that is in among all of these other characters that are all adults, and I'm thinking, okay, so he must be like a prodigy. And he is pretty tough, but he's got that sort of kid's gumption of you know, he's kind of the counterpoint to Hayato. And I really like that. And then as he actually stuck around in the season, he got to be a little bit more of a complex character. And again, just like with Piscalat, this is post brainwashing that he got to be an interesting character, post lobotomy. But even when other events take place later and that gets undone, some of it stuck. And so it made him a very interesting character. I think that if they do a season 2 of this anime, I see him basically fixing the situation they're in and being a very central part of that story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, initially I thought he was going to be throwaway, but he turned out to be pretty cool.
And again, he's another element of the nun's wish, right? Of the peace between the three races and, and finding a way to not all be enemies.
Yeah.
Anyway, they go to town, they meet up with Frontier, and first he has a huge freak out because they mentioned Rin. He's still terrified of his training sessions that he had with her. And then Yisley is like, hey, you guys should go train. Don't worry about me. And he takes the head of Nickel, the demon that had just been killed. He takes it to his scientist that he has in this nation. And they also already have the giant demon body. He learns that the demons can be poisoned. And he also knows that the training session will definitely attract the demons that he is sure the Zobel army is sending after them. But he doesn't foresee that one of them will come after him, and it's actually Piscalat herself. She traps him in a storage room, and they end up having a battle at the same time that the other two demons attack Prontea and Hayato and Paula. Mm-hmm. Paula and Hayato have to take on the weak one because Prontea's like, hey, you guys can probably handle him, and I want to go test out my new powers because, again, he's figured out how to like cast fire and do laser beams, and none of it's effective. They end up winning. It takes Hayato 6 hours to beat his opponent because he refuses to like use a sword or use anything. He's like, no, I will beat him with punches. So he punches him for 6 hours straight and wins. Prontea beats his almost immediately once he decides to actually try. But the Yisley Piscalat fight is a little more interesting in that he uses like hiding in the shadows from her and a flash grenade and then
ecstasy.
Basically ecstasy to knock her out, and also strips her of her top and points out like if you were a demonic monster that I'd be dead right now, but because now you have human inhibitions. That you have weaknesses, you hesitate, and I was able to capture you, and so yeah, he lobotomizes her and brainwashes her, and then they bring the other demons to him, and she's like, hey, he's gonna make you part of the team.
I did like that their battle was more of a battle of wits than it was of brute strength, because like he mentioned, like she could have just eviscerated him at nearly any moment, but because of overthinking the situation and being a great general, hesitation.
I also like that he's not completely helpless because he's clearly the one who can't fight of the group. He even recognizes that I should train to fight, I should get strong, but he's just totally resistant to it. But is ahead of the time, and it leads me with our ending that he's not as in as dire a situation as he is, and we might think he's in at the end of this anime. But we'll talk about that when we get there. Yeah, so after everyone's brainwashed, they find out the plans of the demon race and how they're working. basically to create a demon human, you have to take a human baby and a demon baby, and you put them inside one demon lady that they have, and she fuses the two together, and then you're able to pop out a demon. So that's why they have their nation running around committing rape, so that they can get a giant amount of babies. And they're like, okay, so should we send these guys back as spies? And they're like, you shouldn't, because there is one of the demons there who is hyper observant, has no actual powers, like fighting prowess, but instead her mutation is that she is super hyper observant, and she'll notice that there's something wrong with us. And this is the character Miku, who we also see molesting the nun. I won't go into it. Anyway, Miku is actually one of the character that's really centralized to a lot of what the issues that we have with this anime are.
Yes.
So let's see how she does in the review. What do you guys think about Miku?
I think if she was just a sociopathic, implied that she does terrible things off screen, I don't think I would have as much problems with her. The issue is that not only is she drawn very sensually and voluptuously, but I've never been so disgusted with a character drawn that way.
Right.
Yeah, she does terrible things to people for pleasure, and she loves the pleasure of pain. And it's like, okay, I get it. She's a demon. She's a bad person. But if her superpower is she's super observant, I don't see how that rolls into torture matron. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, I didn't enjoy when this character was on screen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If they had done all the things that they showed us, if they'd done those things off screen or referred to them happening, I think a lot of the problems I have with this anime would disappear, because they are centered around her, and around people that are with her. And so, yeah, I find her to be the most difficult character to stomach on the screen, which came as a real surprise to me, because I like the character design. You know, I don't have a problem with the character design, but
actually,
I do
found it funny that they pointed out, like, there's some points this anime is very self-aware, but they pointed out, like, well, not very many people dress like that, so she's definitely a double.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the issue to me wasn't even necessarily Miku so much as don't show us what Miku does.
Yeah.
Tell us what Miku does, but don't show us. So I can't even really say that it's Miku that I have a problem with. It's what they chose to put on display.
For me, character design might have been a little overboard, but I actually like a strong, confident woman who likes to get her freak on. I actually find that refreshing, rather than the "I'm gonna punch you in the nose if you."
Yeah.
I like a woman who likes what she wants, and that's fine. The problem with Miku is that what she wants is beyond the pale for me, and that we had to see it happen, and that's the problem. But also, as a villain, I thought she was really cool. The hyper observant power and how dangerous they made her was really cool. And the fact that, like, this is the target we gotta get or we are screwed, and that she's able to see that coming a mile away, so she's not the target they get. That was cool. And just knowing that she's out there and they're like, we are so screwed because she is out there and we're never gonna find her. And her evil plan of how to hide is genius. Yeah, she's actually a better villain than Dr. Obami is.
Oh yeah. To me, she's very much like an evil Sherlock Holmes, right? Like like Moriarty. Everything we've seen, even with like the anime Moriarty, the Patriot, right? That didn't feel as much of like an evil version of Sherlock Holmes. Like, she nailed it because she's constantly intuiting different things just from looking at people. And she's so many steps ahead. Like, even when they're trying to find a safe house, basically, like, she's days and weeks ahead of where they're actually at in any given moment. And that's pretty cool.
Right, because when the Armada had surrounded the island, they had no idea why Rin was there. But then Miku comes in and goes, hey, move a couple ships like this. If you do, she's probably going to change her stance this way. And she does. She's like, she's protecting something.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea she was protecting something, but Miku could like intuit that just based off of some intuition and some movement. I like you said, Troy, I loved that they had a character like that. I just wish it wasn't her.
The Idaten talk about, with the new information they got of what the Demon Lord could be, and they do a couple guesses, and then Yizli figures it out, and him and Prontea go and talk about it. And Prontea has this model replica of the demon seal full of cockroaches.
Like, why?
And Yizli demonstrates what this Demon Lord is with it by breaking it open. He's like, you're gonna get cockroaches everywhere, and they're full of dead cockroaches. And Yizli's like, this is what's happening with the demons. There's not a seal of demons waiting to pop out. They're all dead. They all died. And I think that is super clever writing. That is a great change in what is it we always say? Subverting expectations.
Yes.
That's a great subversion of my expectations. Because that's every anime, right? Like, oh, if the seal's broken, all the evil army will return. They're like, no, you're sealed inside there for 800 years. You're going to die. These are biological beings. That's not a thing. But then he's like, all those demons dying would have been praying. And what makes an Idaten? People praying and needing salvation. And unfortunately, because it was formed inside the seal, there's an Idaten inside the seal who works for the demons instead of the humans. And he's able to broadcast on a Wi-Fi signal just like we've established Prontea can do. So it's not, out of the realm of possibility. And he started controlling the internet, and then he built a robot body. And ever since then, he has been Dr. Obami, the Demon Lord. And I thought that was just a very clever, again, subversion expectation and a good way to set up a bad guy. And it has the problem with, also he's fused with the Idatens who made the seal's memories. So if he shows up, Rin's going to think that's her grandfather. So she's not going to want to fight him. So we can't let this guy out. Like, we'll take care of the demons, but the main source of the problem, we can't handle. We can't deal with this. And that was cool.
Yes.
Yep. I agree. All right. Iota trains with the demons. And then this is where he learns about getting heavy from Prontea. He actually rapidly gets stronger here because they teach him about being able to change his weight. And then also realize, hey, your weight has been set to super low the entire time. If you just throw punches at your body weight, because you were already punching holes in the demons, imagine if you do it at like actual body weight or higher, you're going to like destroy stuff. And he's able to, he ends up getting to fight Prontea again. Still gets his butt kicked, but is doing better.
I did love Paula gets on the scale and she's like 60 kilograms. Like, okay, lower your weight all the way down to 0. She does it, 0. And then Hayato gets on there, he's 65 kilograms. We're like, all right, now raise your weight. And he's like, ah. He does this whole like Dragon Ball Z power up, no change.
Yep. There's even a spot where Prontea does his laser beam, and it's just a Kamehameha. It's a purple Kamehameha. Right. He's even got his hands in the Kamehameha pose. Yeah. And the sounds are Dragon Ball Z. Like when they warp, it's like whoop, and yeah,
yeah. Definitely, there was definitely shout out to Dragon Ball Z here, but for sure. Back in Zobel, the Empress, her name is Brandy, who's not actually an Empress. Basically, Obami's like, you two pretend to be the leaders. She tells her 3 children, the ones she's actually given birth to, run away. Like, this is going bad. We're all going to be in danger soon. I want you each to grab 1 demon each and leave the country. And they laugh at her for being maternal for the first time in her life. But again, it's showing us that these demons aren't as evil and callous as we have assumed they are.
And then she's surprised that this was the first time they thought of her as maternal.
Yep. She did strangle them when they laughed at her, though. But they all do leave with their chosen person. I have all their names, but it's not really important to the story. Just there's an older prince, a middle-aged daughter, and then the younger prince. and they
Yeah,
all.
because they know Nickel was killed, and he was the strongest, and then they sent the other three, and they have not returned or given
Right, and
communication back.
Miku
So they're
suspects
just
they've been captured.
well, this is oh, that's right. They thought they were killed, but then Miku was like, no, they were probably captured. And so yeah, now they're kind of in panic mode. Like they are coming. This is not good.
Yeah.
So Yisley is planning the big invasion, and his first stop is to go to the third country that's in this world. And this is the one that was set up by Rin as a sanctuary for humans. And so they worship God, but it basically turned into every idea of a religion / con man scheme.
Yeah.
Right. And they break in and they pretend that, well, we're the gods. But it basically ends up being like, hey, don't go to war with any other country. And they're like, but those other people are heretics. You guys basically turned your entire nation into slave labor through religious power, but which we're fine with because we don't care. But also, don't you start a war, or we'll make you suffer. And they're like, well, we can do that. Then you're fine. We're out of here. And that's the only time we get to see them.
Yep.
Around this time, Miku puts a decoy in place from watching the videos that she's been watching, sneaks down and gets the maternity unit. So I mentioned that there's a demon they have to put the human babies and the demon babies into, and so Miku goes and gets her, and also the nurse that helps with the baby deliveries, and they flee. And she's like, yeah, we're bouncing. She's also realized that the demon seal is what's being guarded, and had told Obami, but she also leaves him a letter that she's running away because
And
they know.
It has like an electronic tracker on it for when it gets open. She gets a notification.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah. Then the Idaten meet up, and they are ready. They get Rin, and they're ready to start the invasion, and so they do attack Zobel. And we see stuff like Rin swinging her sword and buildings go flying. The demons are hilarious. And like, how are they ever going to tell us apart from the humans? They'll never be able to find us. Rin comes in and blows up like 10 buildings. They're insane!
Yeah.
Everybody run! Their plan is they have Pisklat announce a military coup d'etat, and that anyone who doesn't want to be involved in the fighting to evacuate, so that all the humans evacuate, while Promptea watches for high priority targets. While
And
Rin
cuts off the continent from the rest of this landmass from the continent. So
digged underneath it and everything, so there's nowhere else to go. But we do see he misses Miku. Miku gets out with her group in time. Meanwhile, Rin ends up in a battle with Empress Brandy, and Hayato, he finds the nun that was in that one scene in the prison cell and frees her, and then he's challenged to a duel by the Emperor. He beats the Emperor, who's then helped by the nun. I'm skipping around. There's a bunch of different stories skipping around, so I'm going to try to focus on one at a time here. And the nun's like, let me help you. And he's like, you've got to figure it out by now. I'm not human, and I'm like a demon. And she's like, yeah, but you also didn't use us as hostages or hurt us while the fight happened. You clearly took the fight away. And so I don't think you're that evil. And he's like, you're silly.
I would have eaten you.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out he has a remote detonator for a nuclear bomb, and he chooses not to use it as he dies. Meanwhile, Rin fights Brandy,
Which is the most hilarious fight I think I've seen in an anime in quite a while.
Again, all the demons are super underdogs here, and so Brandy is like controlling corpse bodies with her hair, like puppets to distract Rin, and Rin's just keeps beating them, and is like, what is going on here? And even uses a fake puppeteer to try to trick her, but eventually she just sucks up all the hair into a giant ball, pulls Brandy in, kills everyone in the ball except for Brandy, and is like, okay, you and I are going to talk. And when she does talk to him, Dr. Obami shows up, and he's like, hey, I've been getting my memories back recently, and I remember, and he has all her grandfather's memories. Again, I don't know how there's a grandfather of these gods that come out of temporal portals or whatever, but Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't call him grandfather. I mean, I know she did, but they don't age. So whoever wished for him the strongest must have been an old man.
Right. That makes sense. Especially what we learn here in a minute. She drops her sword when she has this realization, and Brandy grabs it and swings at her and cuts her in half, but also destroys Obami, his robot body,
And like half the city.
and half the city with the swing because the sword's so powerful. And we had already seen that you could hand a Idaten weapon to someone else and they can use it to enhance their power.
A little bit of a inconsistency here. Prontia specifically called out that he could hand his weapon to somebody because normally when something gets cut off an Idaten, it disappears. So the fact that, and her blade has disappeared before very quickly after she let go of it. So the fact that Brandy was able to grab it was a little odd to me, but still a cool scene because she cuts her in half and she still kills Brandy.
Yeah, he even called out that I can separate my sword from my hand and Rin cannot. So yeah, that's very weird.
We should also, we've skipped over, but anytime this dumps exposition or scientific explanation, it does it at like 1.5 times speed.
I hated it.
I took that as a signal of like, none of this matters, Jeremy. Don't pay attention to the details because it doesn't matter. But yeah, it sounds like it didn't work for you guys.
I loved it and hated it at the same time, like, because I wanted the information and I didn't need it to, like, I don't need to take too much time to absorb it. Just give it to me and let me go. But at the same time, it was so fast, I still had to pause and be like, what the heck did you just say?
If it was in English, I probably would have found it more funny. But because, I had the, like, I only did it once because, like, I was getting into it. And then once I was upset with it and it started going fast, I was just like, I don't care. Screw it.
Okay. Hayato, who's injured from his fight, runs into a new Idaten, and this is actually from the nun. And I'm calling her. She does have a name, but this new Idaten ends up with the exact same name, so that's why I'm going to keep calling her the nun.
Which I wonder if that is what's happened to every one of them.
Yeah, why they show up with a name.
They're identical and named after the person who mostly summoned them. Yeah. But he pulls her out of there, and so we have a new Idaten named Gil. Not much to talk about other than that she is super into training and getting stronger, because that was the nun's wish, is that she could be stronger to actually help people, since there's not much to help that she can do.
And influenced by Hayato being pulled out by him.
The other, like, Yizli and Protea learned that Miku escaped by finding her decoy. And they all meet up and they meet Gil. And then Protea goes back and he runs into the nun and is like, oh, you're Gil? Didn't I just meet you? She's like, no, we haven't met. And he's like, oh, you must be the human. And then he kills a demon that attacks her and she gets really upset with him. Like, and he's like, would it have upset you if it was like an even battle? Because that's what she's upset about.
I love this call out.
You could have you beat him so easily you didn't have to kill him. And he's like, he was going to kill you. What do you want me to do?
Yeah,
and then he calls out like there is no circumstance that would satisfy your moral conundrum here.
Right. And so he knocks her out. Eventually the war though does end and they do win. And Miku and her group escape, and also the children of Brandy have escaped.
I do like one of the top humans. He's like, what are you going to do with this country now that it's destroyed? They're like, oh, you're going to rebuild it.
Yeah. Right.
After I perform surgery.
No, I don't think they were going to do surgery. Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, okay. No, they only did it to the demons. That's right.
Yep.
What was the guy's name? Data or something like that.
Oh, the data guy?
Barcode? Yeah. Barcode. Yeah, Barcode.
That's right.
Who's the other demon that actually has no powers but superhuman intelligence, but his is like processing information. And they were able to capture him. Rin enters into a depression and will no longer train or do anything. She just stands there, due to seeing her maybe grandfather get killed again. we kind of start going through like time skips here. So the Zobel Empire is reborn. They analyze the data. 13 demons have gotten away. We catch up with some of those demons, like the oldest prince. He basically forces his way into the underworld of gangsters and stuff. Miku, she finds a shut-in who plays online games, and they basically do the biggest identity theft of all time, including her face, and moves in with
Literally.
her group. Yeah. There. And then Gil starts training. We do see that Prontea tries to read the Demon King's electronic files, but he doesn't understand the scientific mumbo jumbo in them, and he's like, and I'm not gonna be able to tell you everything, and this is too much work, and so I quit. Either you figure out how to have this power to look on at electronic files, or we're never gonna know what it says.
Or you could learn genetic. He's like, no. Hard no.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we going to talk about Blue Lagoon at all?
Oh God, yeah, the youngest child, the youngest son, and his demon girlfriend.
Yeah, when that comes up in the story, it's.
Oh, that's not okay. Sorry, I thought it was. Never mind.
So anyway, Prontea gets. He has to become the new trainer of the group. But we do see him track down. He's also if they ever get a feel for where the demons are, they use him to go get them. He almost gets the princess and the royal butler that she's with, but the royal butler has digging powers, so they escape into tunnels.
Which we never
He
see.
can't stand her.
Yeah, he can. Okay, this
Yeah.
cracks me up how, like, every time that we see what he's dug out, it's these massive, like, cavernous, under subterranean tunnels that are just huge, like some giant worm dug them, right? And yet we never see him transform. We never see him show some kind of appendage that would dig these perfect circular tunnels.
We see his huge hands when he's first introduced.
Do we really?
Yeah, he has huge
I didn't catch that.
hands that he uses to dig with.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I missed that. But yeah, seems like he absolutely hates her guts, but he knows that he needs her, so he's like, right. I guess I love you.
Yeah, so like he kisses her literally to shut her up, and
yeah.
Anyway, then years pass, and then we do see the youngest child, Buzz, with the girl that he took. They've clearly had a baby. The baby is a giant monster. It has eaten her arm, and he's trying to fight it, and it runs away into the ocean. And that's where we end there.
Eats a whale.
Eats a whale.
Yeah.
They actually go back to Zobel to ask for help dealing with their demon baby. And Pisclat's like, okay, do you know where anybody else is? And they're like, no. He's like, okay, then we're done with you. And Corey executes them immediately, and they're dead.
I couldn't believe that. I actually felt bad. I thought these are two somewhat sympathetic demon characters. Like, they were willing to actually come back and inquire for help because of the care for their child. These could be like Corey, essentially.
I am surprised that the option of like, hey, are you okay with being brainwashed, or even just grabbing them and brainwashing them so you have more people on your team?
Yeah, exactly.
Is an option. I get look, our goal is to exterminate the demon race, and that's what we're going forward with, but yeah, I whatever though.
Yeah.
Gil, Paula, and Hayato are training, and Corey is sent to go train with them. Now, Corey has obviously, he was a child back when they last fought. Now he's older, and he's like, hey, I'm much stronger, and Yisley told me how to use my power the most effectively, where he covers himself in tentacles to take a new form. And he's more powerful than they are. And Hayato's really pissed off, because all he had to do was, he's like, what'd you do to get stronger? He's like, I grew up. But so they start training with him for years. Meanwhile, Miku comes up with this great plan to contact online the demon lord, and creates a little robot for him to go on. I'm not going into Miku's other plan to restart the race. Just know it deals with babies and
boys.
Yeah.
But and that's it's explicit.
Yeah. Yes, that's part B of the plan. We'll touch on as we get to the one part just a little bit, but I don't feel like going into details. There's cool stuff about Cipher. Jeremy, you were excited about the Cipher.
Yes, both the Cipher and also the blog post in general were really fascinating to me because what she basically did is she explained to the audience how to make a comm using a blog post. She's like, okay, so you prepare a agreed upon phrase or something that's going to be so ridiculous nobody else is going to see it, they're not going to understand it, it's going to be incomprehensible babble to anybody else, and then I can attach whatever I want to this blog post. And then the person who knows what to look for, they can put that in a search query, and this is going to show up, and nothing else will, because nobody else is going to use this nonsensical garbage, right? And so she does that with the robot, and I thought that was really interesting to actually see that played out and explained. That was kind of cool. But she also mentioned that she used like something that was similar to a Caesar cipher. I think that's what it was called. It was a Caesar cipher. And so I looked it up just to make sure I understood it correctly. And maybe it's just different enough that it warrants, being as unbreakable as they seemed to treat it as. But a Caesar cipher is just a substitution cipher where like you choose a number that you're going to count forward. And so you write out what you want. And then for every letter, you count forward 3 numbers, right? So if the word is Caesar, you start with C. You go C, D, E, F. You replace all the C's with F's. And then you do the same thing with every single letter. So what they wound up doing to actually make this cipher less easy to break is they used a keyword. And so I'm not sure exactly what they mean by it's similar to a Caesar cipher or it shares some similarity to it, but like no matter what you did, no matter what calculations you did, it seems like it would just still be a matter of 26 characters. Right? So you just check to see, is it +1, +2? Because it doesn't matter if you multiply, subtract, minus, some kind of weird key phrase. But it was still cool that they put that in there. I would have liked to have known exactly what cipher they used, but that's just me.
This has been fun times with Jeremy.
Yes. This was probably my favorite part, like this blog post in Cipher. I was like, this is so cool.
All right. Then we catch up with the princess, who is just sitting on an island popping out babies with the butler who doesn't like her. Literally just dropping them into the water, little monster babies. And so the world is filling up with monsters in the ocean, killing whales and stuff, because she's just popping them out there. 7 years pass by, and Rin, who hasn't moved, suddenly she sees a whale. She's like, hey, there's a whale. And then it gets eaten by a monster, and she's like, what? And so suddenly she cares again. She goes and investigates, but she can't find the monster. And then she comes across Corey and Paula training, and she's like, oh, nope, that's a demon. I can go take care of that. And goes to kill Corey, and Paula actually jumps in the way and takes the blow and gets cut mostly in half. And so Rin's like, oh, I don't understand what's going on. Hold her together. She'll heal faster.
Yeah.
And then Hayato has to explain to her, like, yeah, some demons are on our side. Demon monsters are showing up. And we get a conversation with Prontea and Yizli that not only now are the monster babies, like, they have so much food that they're doing really well, and they're starting to mate with each other, so they're making more monster babies. The monsters are really starting to get out of control. He's killing like 4 a day and still not able to keep up with them.
Yeah, it was interesting too because it did a flashback to what it was like before the seal, and they had taken out everything to the point where they were actually eating each other, cannibalizing.
Mm-hmm.
So showing up in this world that hasn't had to deal with them for hundreds of years, it's just rife. It's full of so much food.
And Miku to try to find her, they make her, most wanted and make her a known fugitive. And so she decides the episode ends with her appearing in public and shooting a guy in the face. So in our last episode, Prontea is...
Yeah, Jason, exactly.
Prontea goes looking for her, and searches the building she went in, can't find her, and they're like, oh, something's up. They and all the demons are super excited, like, ooh, that worked. Our plan is ready. Rin starts taking over the training again with the others. So then we see Yizli and Piscalat. She's points out again that he never rests, and he's like, "Yeah, you should go rest." She leaves, and she gets all flustered, thinking about like, "Oh, he never has made a move on me. I kind of wish he would." You know what? Nope, I'm just tired. I can't think like that. So she goes to take a shower, and then gets hit with the drug that Yisley had used on her again, and the soldier that had been marching with her comes in. She's like, "What are you doing?" And it's not a soldier, it's a robot being controlled by Dr. Obami, and he undoes the brainwashing, so she dices up Yisley, and they capture him, and also they send a message to Corey, "Hey, you can be done with the training since Rin is taking it over. Bring Paula with you." And they come back, and so he delivers Paula to Piscalat, who immediately abducts her, and then he gets drugged with food, and his brainwashing gets erased as well. They find this out because Prontea can't. Gil calls Prontea because she can't contact them with the cell phone she had hidden on the island. And Prontea goes, and he gets hit by a bomb in Command Central, and he's like, "Oh, we are screwed. This is bad." And we find out the whole Miku thing was actually the robot body of Dr. Obami, and they created mask and face so he can switch appearance and be whoever he wants at any time. And he had pretended to be Miku and then switched into another person that Prontea had not noticed in the store. But they did point out that it was a girl changing in a changing room, and he had looked in and then went away, and the girl had noticed him, and Yisley's like, "Wait, no human should have been able to notice him. How did he miss that?" Well, because he's dumb.
Yep.
So along the anime ends proper with Yisley and Paula being tortured, and Rin finding out that and not just like a little tortured, like vivisected, taken into little parts and cavity searches.
This is painful to watch. And honestly, they don't do a ton of it on screen. What they do on screen is really, really explicit and painful to watch. But even just the sound design of it was very, very effective. Like, oof.
Yeah, and so the anime ends with Rin searching for them across the world. She's like, "I'm gonna go find them," and they're like, "Wait, where?"
And she's literally just running around, running into like cliff sides, kicking trees up, and just screaming their names. Yisley, Paula.
And then, but I just wonder, like, hey, these guys get stronger when you hurt them and you're torturing them over and over again. I feel like you're gonna make Yisley and Paula strong, which is like the last thing you want to do. We do also see a scene with Corey coming in and seeing them, and Paula like saying it hurts, and like he's like, "Hey, I'm not brainwashed anymore. Why is this affecting me? Why do I care?" He's clearly upset. I kind of thought we'd
to hide it from the other demons.
I thought we'd get it with Piscalat too, especially from the ED, that there'd be something there. Maybe in the future there will be. And then before we go to final review, there's the scene where it's implied that the 9-year-old boys, as best as I can calculate, are being used to practice breeding with Miku and the nurse. And there's a really explicit scene with the sound design. I'm like, why would you put that sound in there? That's just so over the top. The first episode, the end of the first episode, and this scene, we're both like, that's way too much.
100%.
And again, not that these are demons and evil people, and I don't have to think that like, oh, their morals don't match mine. That's not a good character or anything. It's not that. It's that why do I have to see this happen? It's been implied for 3 episodes this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Why do I need to have a scene watching it? That's also like I get to see a naked girl's backside, and again that wink wink, like, oh, this is kind of hot, isn't it? No, it's not. No. Please stop trying to make it be. That's not okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Any other last thoughts? I kind of took over everything there at the end.
No, that's fine. I'll go into more in final review.
Okay, let's go to final review. Jason.
Yeah. This anime is frustrating because there's a lot to like, but there's just too much to dislike and too much that's really gross. I want to give it like a 3. almost a 4 with some of the potential there. But I would have given it a 3 falling on its face as far as storytelling wise, because there's some really cool ideas here. I have to give it a 1 because these scenes are just gross and they do not belong in this kind of media. The tone of this anime is all over the place. I don't know how to feel about certain scenes, and some of the scenes that I would feel either disgusted or, just grotesque. It's just, I feel dirty, and I didn't like the way that this anime approached some of these topics. So it's a 1 for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also a 1 for me. Again, a long time ago, you asked me, Troy, if I thought that the scale would go down to 0, and yes, this would be a 0 for me for all the same reasons that you said, Jason. But I didn't design the website to display 0, so it's gonna have to be a 1. But yeah, this is a 1 for me, and I think the big issue with me is, like, I understand taking the world that you're building seriously and being as true to the characters as you can be. I totally get that. I understand creating, like, demons that would do things like this that we consider completely unacceptable. And, I would go as far as saying are completely unacceptable. But you don't have to show us. Like, you can simply tell us. And it is the responsibility of the person creating this story to give us that respect of being able to say, I don't have to show you these things. Just because they happen in this world doesn't mean you have to see them. They told us so many times what was going to be going on. That was enough. Like, I was uncomfortable enough just knowing that the story would dare to go there. So, and the anime, it had that problem with a lot of things, I thought, where, like, when it did decide to show things to us, like with that scene and also with the rape scene in the beginning, the tone of those scenes just it felt so off. Like, it was almost like we were seeing them from the demon's perspective. And I don't want to see that. Like, I want the bad guy to be the bad guy in this case, especially if they're doing such heinous things. So if you're going to flavor it in such a way that, it loses that sense of terror and dread and evil, that just can completely ruin something that otherwise I actually think would be pretty cool. Like, I like what this anime brought to the table as far as ideas go, and I thought it was original, and I thought it had some really interesting concepts that it was exploring. But this ruins it for me, just 100% ruins it. So again, 1.
Outside of the controversial things, one of the things I think it does wrong is that I'm just not rooting for any of the characters, because they're not good-hearted good guys. Again, like I said, the Studio Trigger without the heart, but that heart is so essential. There's a lot of cool ideas that I like exploring, and there was enough to keep my interest, so it probably would come in around a 4. But it's definitely not perfect because I didn't root for anybody. With the controversial parts that I wish it weren't there, 3 or 4 scenes that could have been taken out. I'm going to go down to a 2, not all the way to a 1. There was enough there that I did like watching. So that's as low as I want to go. But again, if it hadn't been for a few scenes, this would be a much higher rated anime. So
I agree.
All right. With that, our next anime that we'll be talking about, this is a group pick that we did because we're about to go into our end of year holiday season where we do a movie and then do 2 like older anime that we had always wished we had seen. Kind of gives us a break from the new current stuff. It gives them some time to make new anime for us to start picking from. So we also wanted kind of a palate cleanser after especially after this one and a few of the other animes we've watched recently. So we are watching Fena, the Pirate Princess, as our next pick.
PG-13.
So we checked the rating. is a teenager rating, so we should be good there.
I like how Troy's trying to disperse the responsibility. Like, oh no, it's not my pick. It's your pick.
It's not. It literally is not my. I give it a thumbs up. I've given this a thumbs up. Jeremy's giving it a thumbs up. I'm assuming you're good with it.
I'm good with it as well.
and honestly, the reason it's supposed to be my pick, and the reason I'm skipping is because I picked the movie at the end of the year, and I don't want to pick two things in a row. That feels weird, and I don't want to have that much control over what we watch at any one point in time. So I wanted a group pick, and you guys were nice enough to help us come up with it.
I'm excited for the movie pick.
Yeah, which we already noticed, but we're not going to announce it yet.
Oh, I don't remember. You'll have to tell me afterwards.
I know, it's fine. If you would like to discuss the Idaten Deities Only No Peace, or any other anime we talk about, you can reach us out on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can contact us through our website, theanimebakaclub.com. There's a contact site there. Or you can leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and it will come back to us as well. Feel free to share your thoughts. If this is an anime you love, and that stuff that bothered us doesn't bother you, that's absolutely fine. That's what we're here to discuss. So feel free to share your thoughts. Or if it didn't work for you, tell us why. We'd love to hear that as well. With that said, I think it's time for us to go.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.